Call to order the June 16th, 2021 meeting of the zoning board. We'll start with introductions if we may. Nick,
I'm Nick Codner, Building Inspector, Zoning Administrator.
Laura Gandier, Associate Planner.
Irene Macarelli, alternate member.
David Armstrong, alternate member.
Brendan O'Brien, voting member.
Neil Dunn, voting member.
Bill Berardino, voting member.
All right, as far as meeting procedures, the clerk, Brendan, will read the case into the record. The applicant will come up to the microphone, he's familiar where that is, and make their presentation. The board will address the applicant with any questions or comments. Those in favor will be asked to give up, and those in favor of the request are given the opportunity to address the board. Those opposed or having questions will be given the opportunity to address the board. The applicant will be given the opportunity to rebut or answer any questions. It will come back to the board. The board will follow up with any further questions. At that point, the public hearing of the case will be closed and the board will go into deliberations. Those who wish to speak can go up to a microphone on the side over there at the desk where Beth normally is, on my left. All conversation comes through the board. It's not between the applicant and anybody out in the audience. And if you have cell phones, either turn them off or put them into the vibration mode, please. Interested parties can stay here for the whole deliberation or call Laura in the morning and get the determination. So from there, I guess we go to last month's minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
Second.
Well, was Bill here? Can he second?
He can second, he'll just abstain when he votes.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Bill and I abstain. The minutes passed. Any report by the town council liaison?
I have nothing tonight.
All right. Any regional impact determination from the planning department?
I have one case, which is 6/16/2021-1, request for 4 variances from LZO 7.7.E.3 to allow a changeable electronic message board sign that is otherwise prohibited. 7.5.C to allow a sign 16 feet in height where only 10 feet in height are allowed. 7.6.D.3.B to allow an additional wall sign where only one is permitted. And 7.6.D.3.A.I to allow a freestanding sign to be located 4 feet from the Nashua Road property line where 15 feet are required, and 2 feet from the Ella Road property line where 15 feet are required. 7 Nashua Road, map 10, lot 129, zoned C2, RGGS Realty, Inc., owner and New Hampshire signs applicant. Staff recommends that the board find that this case is not a development of regional impact, as it does not meet any of the criteria of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission.
So before we vote on it, the 2 alternates will be voting members tonight on all cases. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the regional impact determination of no regional impact.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No regional impact. Who will be presenting?
It's a lonely place tonight.
But it's still 4 variances.
And I've got a newly repaired, I'll be happy to see this is newly repaired. It's not new, same old one. Too cheap to buy new.
Do you want me to read them in?
Yes, while Mr. March is setting up, if you'd read them in, please. Sure.
Case
Or at
number-
least we probably do the first. Are you going to approach them all at once with one fell swoop?
Yes, sir.
Case number 6/16/2021-1, a request for 4 variances from LZO 1, 7.7.E.3 to allow a changeable electronic message board sign that is otherwise prohibited. 2, 7.5.C to allow a sign 16 feet in height where only 10 feet in height are allowed. 3, 7.6.d.3.b to allow an additional wall sign where only one is permitted, and 4, 7.6.d.3.8.i to allow a freestanding sign to be located 4 feet from the Nashua Road property line where 15 feet are required, and 2 feet from the Ella Road property line where 15 feet are required. 7, Nashua Road, map 10, lot 129, zone C2, RGGS Realty Inc. owner and NH Signs applicant. There's prior zoning from this property, the most relevant of which is there was a variance granted to locate a freestanding sign 4 feet from Nashua Road and 2 feet from Ella Avenue where 15 feet to the property line is required in 2006. In 2002, a similar variance was denied. There's also a variance from 2001 to allow a canopy to be 17 feet from a lot line where 60 feet is required, and to allow a freestanding sign to be 4 feet from Nashua Road and 2 feet from Ella Ave, where 15 feet is required from both. A was granted with restrictions, and the second was withdrawn at the applicant's request.
So before we start, Nick, maybe you can help me. I've always thought there was one bite of the apple here. So on the case for the 2 feet from Ella Ave, it was withdrawn. The 2002-3, variance for 4 feet and 2 feet, which is essentially what we're looking at again here, was denied. And then in 2006, somehow they were able to get it again. Usually there's one bite of the apple. I mean, there's nothing substantially different there.
Yeah, I don't
Any
know.
feedback on that, or?
No, that was before my time. I don't know how that happened.
All righty, go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Avenue, Auburn, New Hampshire. And I'll be talking to the case. Essentially, there are two major components to this. The first is a rebuild of the sign into a sign that conforms with the mobile image specs. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking this sign here, which has been temporarily refaced, or it will be tomorrow, and that has been permitted, and we're turning it into this one. This one's slightly larger. It's on the same pole. It's the same height. It's the same setback as the existing one, but it incorporates a digital message center. This is a aerial view of the location. You see the canopy is here. Route 102 is this here. Ella Lane is right here. Ella Avenue, I beg your pardon. And the sign is right here. There's an entrance to the property here. And this area here is all entrance as well. So there's a substantial portion of the property that is taken up by entrances. And then over here is essentially the property line, the property boundary. There's nowhere to put a sign over there. So my statement is in a slightly different order to the one presented in the minutes. I'm happy to reorder it, or if you're okay, I'll just continue with the order that I have.
So, yeah, as long as you let Brendan know which one,
Yes.
well, are you going to do it in one fell swoop, though, or?
I'm at the pleasure of the board, but it seems that doing it in one fell swoop makes a little bit of,
If you think it's going to
Sense.
address all 4 variances, then that's
yes,
fine.
yeah.
Just one thing before you start, you say the sign now complies with mobile's standards.
Yes,
Okay, not that we care about mobiles.
I understand that, yeah.
Okay. Well, when you say complies, it kind of gives an impression to maybe somebody less experienced that it complies with our standards.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
All right.
So-
So for clarity, I was bringing that up.
So what we're trying to do is bring it into a sort of a mobile spec, is what I meant to say. So mobile specification. So we requested firstly, we requested permits for an additional sign for the building to identify the convenience store. And we were denied, as the code only allows 2 wall signs. We have a canopy. On the canopy, we have 2 mobile signs which were previously permitted. This is an overhead view of the canopy. There's a mobile sign here, and there's a mobile sign here. That obviously is the canopy there. So the denial basically said that we were only allowed one sign on a fascia for each occupancy. The convenience store is its own entity, and as I said, the mobile gas canopy has two mobile signs, each on a different aspect of the canopy, one serving the traffic heading from Derry towards Route 93, and the other serving traffic exiting 93 and heading into Derry. The mobile signage is needed to identify the site adequately for that traffic, for traffic approaching on either direction from 102, and thus removing one to maintain the limit as required by code would not be a viable alternative. Gas stations in general operate on very low margins. The margin on a gallon of fuel is only a couple of cents, particularly in an area like that where there are a number of gas stations that compete. What's happened is that the convenience store has become a more and more important part of operating a gas station profitably. If you look around, you'll see Cumberland Farms. The C-store is a major part of the Cumberland Farms business model. Alltown is the same thing. And then you will have seen some Nerea sites popping up around the area. Same thing. So the real profit in a gas station comes from the C-store. This owner is a new owner, and what he wants to do is build the C-store out so that the station as a whole becomes more viable. He's upgrading the store substantially, and that is the purpose of wanting the building sign. Secondly, we requested permits for a new ID sign of 48 square feet, where 65 is allowed in this area. So we're well under what we would be allowed. We asked to maintain the existing height of the sign, and we asked to add LED prices to the sign. The permits for the LED digits and the height were denied. LED digits are a new technology that's replacing the old technology of manual reader boards. LED digits don't have the ability to display information other than number digits, nor do they have the ability to display moving images, flashing, or animation. So it's much like an old digital watch in that that's all it does is it displays numbers, nothing else. They make it easier for the public to read gas prices and improve traffic safety. The older type signs are difficult to change in windy and icy conditions. The LED signs are changed remotely, and this improves the safety of the employees. These signs are networked, allowing the owner to change prices on the dispensers and the ID signs and the till all remotely and simultaneously. So that's a technological benefit of these signs. We also asked for a height of 16 feet, which is the existing height. So we asked to maintain the existing height, and we were instructed to apply for a variance for that. The reason that that height is important is that the current sign, it improves visibility for traffic on approaching from 93. It's also a compromise between hitting the power lines and being too high for power lines, but also avoiding traffic underneath the sign hitting it to any great degree. So it improves visibility. It also improves the safety of the sign. The fourth element we asked for was to maintain the existing setback, and we were denied in terms of section 76D3A. We're not moving the sign at all. We're not changing the setback. We're really maintaining the existing status quo. The site has very limited space other than the space to put a sign, and also to ensure visibility. So there's not a lot of other choices we have to place a sign on the property. And that's really why we're looking for that setback. So the setback is basically 4 feet from Nashua Road and 2 feet from Ella Road. To the points required by variance, granting this variance would not be contrary to the public interest. The C-store is being remodeled and will provide a useful service for people that live in the neighborhood. It's a separate offering to the petroleum operation, as I said. Most of the other similar businesses in the area, i.e. the gas stations, have signs identifying the gas brand as well as the C-store. The sign we're proposing is a modest square footage. It will provide 24 square feet. It will provide adequate identification. Public interest is served by allowing businesses to identify different elements of their offering, adding a modest sign that does not add excessive clutter to the area, and maintaining the viability of the site. Electronic price changes, which is the second thing that we're essentially asking for, offer benefits to the site owner and the public, which include better readability, a neater, more aesthetic appearance. They improve the ability of the owner to control prices centrally and remain competitive, and they're safer for employees to use. The height of the sign is important to make it visible while keeping it clear of power lines and most traffic. It's in the public interest to offer clear, readable signage. Again, this improves the quality of local signage by allowing owners to upgrade them. The current sign is a pretty decrepit sign. It's been there for many years. It's essentially falling apart. One of the upgrades we will offer is converting it to LED illumination inside. It's currently fluorescent, which is dirty and eco-friendly. It also will reduce the chance of damage by motorists at cut corners. The setback is required to ensure visibility for traffic on Route 102, and again, it maintains the existing nonconformity. To the second point, the proposed use will observe the spirit of the ordinance. The zoning ordinance aims to ensure that businesses in town have adequate business identification, advertising, and communication. The building's sign identifies an offering that is distinct from the gas station. It observes the spirit of the ordinance by making the store visible to traffic on 102 and thus improving traffic safety. The road sign is blocked by traffic approaching from 93 by the Nutfield canopy and the auto sales sign. Keeping the current height and the existing setback will mitigate this. The code also promotes safety. The changes to the ID sign, both height and digital changes, enhance that by making the prices easy to read and change, making the site visible to traffic coming off 93 towards the site, and making sure that the sign is less likely to be hit, but is also clear of power lines. So the top of the sign does not change in height, and nor does the bottom. So that basically the sign maintains the same bottom and the same top. Substantial justice will be done to the property owner by granting the variance. The viability of the station is dependent on the C-store. The C-store is dependent on signage. Without this, the public would be less likely to know that the site has a C-store. Allowing the building sign has little or no negative effect on the area, but will enhance the owner's chances of success substantially. As concerns the ID sign, the name of the site and the price of gas are two critical elements to the success of a station. Signage is very important to these businesses. Allowing this station to present prices in the same way as the other local stations would be fair. The use of this technology offers several advantages. It saves employees having to change manual numbers in windy and icy conditions and improves their safety. It allows the owners to change prices remotely via a network. Signs approximately 16 feet high. Changing prices is difficult and dangerous due to the proximity of the sign to the road. If the sign was lower, the situation of the site and the limited alternative space would make the sign even more prone to damage from traffic. If it was much higher, it would be unacceptably close to power lines. The site has no other reasonable alternatives for the placement of the sign. Moving it down Ella Avenue would not solve the issue, as the sign still needs to maintain the 15-foot setback. This would also limit visibility. To the fourth point, the proposed use will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. Most of the other gas stations have canopy signs, ID signs with digits, and signs on the building. For example, Shell has 2 canopy signs, LED price changes, and a food mart on the building. Nutfield, which is the former Mobil, has 2 canopy signs, LED price changes, and 2 building signs. Signs requested are modest and will have no effect on property values. They're not out of place in this area. The height and setback of the current site is maintained. Keeping it this height, maintaining the same setback will logically not have an effect on property values. To the fifth point, literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. The zoning ordinance interferes with the owner's reasonable use. The code as written does not distinguish between gas stations, which by their nature have two or more distinct parts to their operation, in this case gas and a C-store, but often gas and repair, from traditional business that typically have one offering, paint, fireworks, pizza, for example. If the ordinance serves to limit the signage and the owner was not allowed to advertise the C-store, the business would suffer unnecessarily and the owner's investment would be put at risk. The code as written would disadvantage the owner by limiting him to using outdated manual price changes, which are incapable of being changed by his network, subject himself to increased employee risk of injury, and incur the higher maintenance costs of manual changes. In addition, heightened setback are pre-existing and both are necessary to maintain visibility for passing traffic. That's
Questions from the board?
Is the repair shop staying there, or is the repair shop?
no, it's being converted to a C-store. So building is underway at the moment. I'm not sure when that is intended to, to
Okay,
to
so
end.
on the front of the building, it looks like there's an office. Is that also gonna be combined into the store, like open it all up?
I
and now
believe
it'll
so,
be the
yes.
store?
Yeah, it'll be a traditional C-store. So the office will be a part of, the attendant that does the gas will also be the person that does the C-store till.
So the C-store sign is, so right now, when I went by there, it looked like there was a sign originally in the front and then a sign on the side of the building.
I don't know if those were permitted, I don't know if those are legal, but those will be removed. This is
Just be
going,
the one sign for the
Correct.
C-store.
yeah, so we're not intending to do any more than that one individual sign.
And do you know what the height of the LED numbered letters are?
Yes, we're looking for a 21-inch digit, so that the LED changer is 21 inches.
What's the existing?
There is no existing.
No, I mean the existing
No,
sign.
the existing, I don't know the answer to that. I would guess they're probably 18s. I'm not stuck on doing a 21-inch digit. If the board feels it's too big, we can bring it down to an 18.
Well, I noticed the Sunoco has multiples, but they're a lot smaller.
Yes.
And then the Shell has larger ones, so I was wondering what this compared to.
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
So right now, the clearance below the existing sign and the clearance below the new sign will be 8 feet off the pavement?
Correct, yeah.
Has anybody ever had a complaint? It looks like it's almost touching the cable lines as it is now.
We haven't had a complaint on that. The cable, what it's touching is essentially the fire alarm and the fiber optic. It's not touching it's not close to any of the electric lines.
I realize that,
Yeah.
but so you've never had any complaints and?
Not that I'm
never
aware
caused
of.
any damage?
Not
as
that
far
I'm
as you're-
aware of, no.
You don't know because you haven't been there long enough and he's a new owner?
The problem with bringing the sign down is you bring it down and you start to get less visibility, but you also have the probability of vehicles hitting it. You widen it out, we start to lose setback on it. We don't want to raise it up, so we're sort of almost pigeonholed into this dimension.
Some of the references you gave in here is that the Shell has a food mart on there. I don't believe that was part of their permit. I also noticed Nutfield has a bunch of canvas-type signs. Nick, do we have any authority or jurisdiction, not the board, but the town? I know that Shell also has the car wash, and they say car wash, so that's another sign. It seems like the whole area is just getting really cluttered because people are taking canvas pinups and leaving them there permanently.
Yeah, we do have the authority. Norma Dietrich is a new code enforcement, and she's getting up to speed. Brad Anderson was the code enforcement officer, and he's been training her. So she's gonna be going around town and checking and all of that.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
No, could we put a stipulation in there, there'll be no pinup signs, just these signs? Or no?
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
There'd be a stipulation in there that there'd be no pinup signs, just these proposed
Well,
signs?
I don't know what they're allowed for 30-day temporaries, or if they're allowed something for, what goes on the glass apparently doesn't seem to be a concern for everybody, although that's signage to me. But every store you see, Planet Fitness has stuff smeared all over theirs. Again, I don't know if that's something within our jurisdiction, but
If it's on the outside of the glass, then we say, yeah, we control it. If it's on the inside of the glass, we don't.
One of the comments I would like to raise is that moving from an unbranded station, and the way that the terminology is that this is currently unbranded, to a branded site, is that Mobile is rigorous about lawn signs and, the type of signs, the Coke signs that go on a pole, or they do a mystery shopper every quarter, and it's rigorous. I see them all for the sites that we control or that we're involved in. And if you have a lawn sign, you lose several points for that. If you get below 80% on that score, and lawn signs are a major part of it. The Coke things that go on the side of that go on the poles that you see people putting on. If you lose 80%, if you get below 80% 3 quarters in a row, Mobile will debrand you. So it's a very serious offense as far as Mobile is concerned.
Mobile requires you to have 2 mobile signs on the canopy?
They don't require it, but in this case, we felt that it was useful because of the traffic flow up and down 102. So they prefer you to have it, but the sites that don't have any mobile signage on the canopy, but it identifies this canopy. I mean, the other thing about the sign is it is substantially smaller than most of the other gas signs in the area.
Has that been looked into, putting it on the canopy?
Yes, we have permitted signs on the canopy, and we did get those permitted.
And was that a variance, or was that you're allowed to?
It was a straight permit.
So that was part of the 2 that you were allowed, so this is.
Correct.
and
So
that's
this
why
is
you need
asking for the
variance.
C-store one. The reason we felt 2 were important was because if you're traveling towards 93, you've got the Valentine sign, a number of other signs that make this site sort of not entirely visible. Coming from the other side, same thing. There's other signs in the way. So the canopy signs are only, I want to say they're 10 square feet. I stand corrected. They're not very big. They're not very big signs.
Yeah, it looks like, when I looked at this, they're 36 inches, 3 feet.
This looks more like there's 5 gas stations within a quarter mile of each other, right across from
Yeah,
each other, and you're looking for something bigger to make this station stand out.
There is a lot of gas.
Well, the Shell has canopy signs on both sides of the canopy. The Sunoco and this sign, the Sunoco and the Shell sign and the Nutfield sign are substantially bigger than this sign. This is a pretty small sign.
I mean, I do agree that the sign that does look better than the old sign, but, and I understand what you're saying about mobile standards, but if this gas station changes, and we've already approved these signs, then it goes with the owner or the business. It doesn't really go with mobile.
Correct.
So the convenience store is a separate entity, and what happens if the person decides not to do convenience anymore, then we're left with a sign there for some other business that can change? Nick, what happens if the convenience store leaves and now they want to put a pot shop in there? If it was legal, or fireworks or something else?
They would have to come and get a new permit. If they change the sign, it has to be permitted.
Right, it has to be permitted, but the
various.
argument here is that the gas station needs the
Has to be
convenience store to
variance.
make the money, and now
Yeah.
if they want to put a hair salon, again, it's getting back to what we're starting to open up for a mixed use, because we're saying it's two different entities.
I mean, may I suggest a condition that says that the building sign would not be used as a sign for the gas station? In other words, it would have to be for something that's not selling gas.
Well, that's my concern. If your argument is that you need the gas sign and the building sign because gas can't make money alone, and then the convenience store, because it's a separate entity, doesn't make it for some reason, and now there's a different kind of business in there, now we're putting a hair salon, whatever, then we just gave a variance for something that goes with the building forever. And it's not fulfilling what our intent was and what you're arguing.
But if it was a hair salon, it would still need a separate identification. If it was another part of say, if it was part of the gas station, it wouldn't necessarily need separate identification because it has the pylon and it also has the canopy.
Nobody goes into the store to pay for gas,
They do,
so it is part of the gas station.
yeah, in that sense, but it's a separate operation to it's a separate
So is
part
it like
of the.
most Irvings, you go in there and you're paying for your milk and cookies
Correct.
and everything, and gas at the same register?
Correct.
And you're arguing that's one those are separate entities and they're,
Let's put a stipulation that that's the only thing it can be, or something like that. It can only get
I'm not
convenience.
sure we can put a stipulation that it can only be that, can we?
No?
No, you can't tie it to the tenant.
That's the trouble when you go to variances like this, when the argument's getting a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
And I concur that as the gas station in the neighborhood, but I'm concerned that, I guess if they were to put something else in there and subdivide it, does it really boil down to that, one wall fascia for nature of each occupancy? Don't we have limits on that? I mean, if you want to put 20 people into a little small space, they can have 20. No.
No, it's 50 feet, I believe, isn't it? There is a limit, and it's divided amongst the tenants.
So 50 linear feet or facial frontage or something?
I'll have to check. I believe it's 50 square feet.
Do you know how big the building space is?
I don't know. I mean, the fact of the matter is that to make the gas station viable, the C-store is a major part of making it viable. And to attract people into the C-store, because the building is so close to the canopy, one really has to identify the C-store.
I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is what happens down the road, and that's the trouble with a variance like this. If it was a Shell or Irving and that's their normal mode of operation and that's how they normally come about doing business, then to me, that's a little bit different. But if it could change and then now we have some kind of I don't want to say retail or service industry where you're going to have cars parked there longer and this place starts getting congested, I'm kind of concerned about that. That we're
Well,
given a variance for something that, your argument is the C-store is needed. I agree with that, and it's a very typical use, as you've described. But I'm trying to, because you're arguing it's separate entities, I'm trying to figure out what happens if something goes differently.
Wouldn't there be occupancy rules about a different business occupying the same property? My sense is that you couldn't just necessarily start a fireworks store there or a hair salon.
Says said wall sign shall not exceed a total area of 50 square feet for multiple commercial buildings where multiple signs are permitted. Maximum size of said sign, wall sign shall not exceed 40 square feet per tenant. And it just goes into facing different.
We're asking,
Theoretically, they could have two signs. Well, no, because they already have the canopy
They already-
signs.
Yeah, three
But
signs.
for the face, they could have 50 square feet. They only have 24 right now.
40?
Well, no, on the building sign, I'm looking, we're talking fascia signs, but somehow they got two on the canopy. So Nick, how would they have gotten two approved for the canopy? How big is the mobile sign on the canopy?
As I say, I think they're about 11 square feet. We're allowed 2 by right. So what we're asking for is the third as a variance.
That's 22.
No, I understand that, but I'm just looking at the square footage too. I was trying to get there to,
Yeah.
So the,
so
it's 22. and 24.
49 feet, all right, so you got 74 inches. 6 times 12, 72, 6 by
So
2, so 12, roughly 12 square feet for the mobile portion.
Yeah, I believe it's 11 and a bit, but 12, I'm okay with 12.
So 11 and 24, is that what the, for the 3 signs?
You'd be 48, because this one's 24. The 2 mobiles are 12 each, so you'd be at 48 square feet, which is slightly under what we would be allowed.
So, yeah, it's a very, I don't know, anything else from the board?
Well, the only other thing I could suggest is, or I could say is, so the 2 canopy signs, I mean, I could see the one coming down the opposite direction from the sign, but the one coming, say, from 93, this sign is pretty visible as far as the station, so I don't know if you would need that and the canopy to identify that station.
Well, those ones are already been allowed, so we're still back to the,
Okay.
you follow me? We're
Yes.
still back to this freestanding, non-conforming, whatever they call them at this point.
Well,
And so they're looking for that in the setbacks, which, and then the additional wall sign, so you're thinking if they took it off the canopy, they could put it on the building?
well, that'd be 2 signs then.
And the mobile on this side at the 93 end would be the identifier?
It could possibly be. It's just a thought. But
Anything else from the board? Anybody in the audience in favor or wishing to speak?
Hi, Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. I'm just a little concerned. I understand the LED thing, and I'm fine with that. But as you were saying, what we pass here goes with the building. So if the mobile station fails, and I don't want it to, but if it happens, or he sells it, and it doesn't even stay a gas station, everything you've given them stays in place. And if the convenience end of it closes, he can put, it's a C2, right?
Yes, I believe so.
So anything that is allowed in C2 can, in fact, be put in there. If they're operating as like he's going to rent that space to somebody, is that would be allowed the same thing. And it wouldn't be necessarily the same people or whatever. So that's my only concern is that whole thing there and that it stays with the building, like you were saying, in perpetuity of the deed. So that's just my concern. And like I said, I'm for the digital end of it. That's fine. I'm just a little concerned. I think that you can see a lot of it. And I think that a convenience store usually has a lot of signs in the windows, you know, how much they are selling cigarettes for and lottery tickets and milk. So you're going to see all of those in the windows as well. And this goes back to the very beginning, the first one we changed. It's a slippery slope. So thank you.
Thank you. So if this was to, Nick, if this was to change hands and no longer be a gas station, the mobile sign, if it was to be changed, would have to go back for another variance? If it was going to go to Joe's Restaurant?
No.
If it's a change of use on a non-conforming, or is it?
It's
we get-
it's there by variance. So if they were to change the face, they can come get a permit, so long as they didn't change the height or the size of it.
Mr. Chairman, may I answer that question?
Sure.
If this gas station was not a gas station anymore, logically, the canopy would have to be removed. The tanks would have to be removed. There'd be a substantial amount of remediation on the site to take that apart. The overwhelming likelihood is that the building would be torn down and rebuilt. And at that point, you'd be able to reface the ID sign with whatever you have, and you would still land up with the same square footage of signs because we would be allowed 50 square foot in this zone. So the area of signage would not change at all.
Well, especially when the variance is already sitting on it, but if they were to rip it down and go in there and do major construction, then it would be a planning board issue for whatever follows through with the torn down building and ripping everything else, and there's more control there.
Correct.
What if they just changed it and put it into a used car lot? They still have the signs grandfathered in, right, with the variance?
And use the same building, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Except for they probably would run into some parking issues, maybe.
Right, that would require
just
change of
saying.
use.
So there are some safeguards, and I'm not trying to be a hard
Yep.
nut here, I'm just trying to think it all through, because, you know, if it was one entity, but where it's two entities and it could change, that's my bigger hangup, is,
Again, most of the gas stations around have multiple signs on them. You know, it's a usual request for a gas station.
well, yeah, but at some point, then you and whoever else does signs should probably be talking to the planning board in the town and change the ordinance. We're here on the ordinance and trying to protect that component of it. And I guess there's probably not too many gas station signs left that haven't gone digital at least, but there's a lot of them that I would still call non-conforming, but they do have a variance on it.
Yeah.
So that
I think
kinda
we're down
takes
to
them out of
one.
the
I think we're down to
non-conforming, I
one.
guess, although the variance is there, but, and to me, that's a little troubling,
Yeah.
because this is the time we're supposed to try to clean those kind of things up when things like this happen. And we seem to have an awful hard time as a board to do that. But I understand the hardship with that lot and the way it was. That's why I was asking, how was it denied and then granted later? It was the same exact variance. But that was out of our purview. All right. Anything else from the board? Anybody in the audience opposed or with questions? Okay, we'll come back to the board. We'll go into deliberations. Thank you. Are you gonna go back and look at the?
I was gonna try, but it doesn't go back far enough, just goes back to 2008. Because you're right, I mean, based on this, it's the exact same request, 4 years apart.
But I guess that's out of our purview. They were,
Yeah.
I don't know, unless that's, well, it was granted, so that, yeah, we can't overturn that.
Right.
All right, so we'll start with the first sheet. What one did we have? What?
So, do you want to start first with, so there were three related to the freestanding sign. There's electronic message board, there's proposed setback, and there's sign height. And then there's additional wall sign, which I believe is the sign for the convenience store. So if we want to do additional wall sign first, we should probably do the three freestanding ones together, whether that's first or last. I don't have a preference, but,
I think that would make more sense first, because that's
okay.
maybe the existing hardship that the variance was
Right.
already granted for, other than the electronic component. I'm not quite sure, so if we go back to it. So why are they here on the height and the setbacks if that was already granted?
Because we were told they changed the area of the sign, the size of it. If they change the size, they need to get the variances done again to make sure that they're not encroaching in setback, in sight distance.
So they went from 42 to 48.
So I'll go back, open this back up. So you went from 42 to 48, electronic sign?
I believe it's 38 to 48.
Say that again,
I
I'm
believe
sorry.
it's 38 to 48.
38 to 48?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. on 72
I
wide.
stand corrected on that, but I think it's 38 to 48.
Yeah, the top one's 72 wide, we don't know what the bottom one is width. So it could be 38.
I thought you said it was no bigger.
No, it doesn't expand the setback, it doesn't expand the height. Essentially, to get the area, what we're doing is filling the space where you're filling the blank space in that sign, in the existing sign. So yes, the size is increasing, but we're allowed 60 square feet, 65 in this area, so we're well under the 65.
Yeah, if it was on the right, proper setbacks, but,
Correct.
I mean, I hate it when you keep doing that. I'm allowed 65, but well, it's- with the right setbacks you would be, but
Yeah.
you might not get that if it was gonna become a hazard. So you filled underneath the existing one, there was gaps on where mobile was wider and between it is,
We're filling this gap here. That's what we're doing.
so that is encroaching in that area you're concerned.
So that's the original, and that's now. That's what they want to do. Basically, widen this bottom, connect it.
Right, square it
So
up.
widening that bottom gets it's only 8 feet off the ground and it's pushing it more into the traffic.
Just, yes, correct. This area is going to be filled in.
Do you know how much you've added? So 38, so you added,
10 square feet.
Split it by 2, 10 square feet by 2?
Correct.
They're encroaching more into the setback. Well, I guess it depends on how we measure that. But,
Yeah.
Right. Not further into the setback, but lower down.
well, lower down,
Right.
which could be more of a hazard due to, there are vehicles well over 8 feet that go in and out of there with racks on them and stuff. So, Nick, if I may, back in 1996, they had a variance for 66 square feet. Why isn't that current?
What was the date?
1996. Variance to have a freestanding sign closer than 15 feet to the property line was 66 square feet.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on with that sign in
Well,
1996.
all I'm saying, it was granted that variance,
Right.
so they haven't gone bigger than that. They went bigger than, none of the other ones talked about the size of the sign. All right, we'll go, but anything else from the board while it's open out there to the applicant? Oh, we'll go back into deliberations, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna do those three first, huh?
So do we want to start with electronic message board? Do we want to start with sign height, or do we want to start with property line setback?
I guess we go to electronic message board?
Okay. Granting the variance would or would not be contrary to the public interest because,
Bill, would not,
I think it would be. Would it?
would not?
I agree,
I agree.
I agree.
because it doesn't change the essential character of the neighborhood.
No, it just makes it more uniform.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah. That's more convenient for somebody to change the numbers.
Spirit of the ordinance would or would not be observed because,
What do we go on Spirit? Same thing, the cheat sheet, same thing. Not violate the basic objectives of the ordinance, would not? Oh,
I would say would, the spirit of the ordinance is observed.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, would be.
Okay.
Agree.
Same reasons as number one. Granting the variance would or would not do substantial justice because,
The whole neighborhood has electronic message boards.
Yeah,
I don't.
It's pretty much.
I agree, I agree on would. The loss to the
So the
applicant.
loss to the
Yeah.
applicant as far as safety and it is better visibility.
Yeah,
Yeah, it actually looks better too.
And at least you can read the red ones. The green ones, you can't even read half the time at night. Has anybody ever noticed that?
Yeah, green one's a lot tougher.
And it's for diesel, I mean, I understand, but it's,
Right.
you can't even, it's fuzzy until you get up top of them.
Yeah.
for the following reasons, the values of surrounding property would or would not be diminished.
Would not.
I would
Would
say
not.
would not, yeah. It's a commercial area with the gas stations.
And again, it's similar to the adjacent property.
Owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because there is or is not a fair and substantial relationship between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because,
It's not,
I agree.
I agree.
because kind of gets back to the redundant, everybody in the neighborhood
Right.
says.
Go for
And they've got 2 setbacks as well.
Synergy. We don't need that there.
I have it on other signs.
That's the new thing.
They don't write our ordinance, though.
That's true. That's true. The proposed use is or is not a reasonable one because? I agree.
Is, they need signage. How big is your synergy component of that sign?
So the logo is 34, the logo itself is 34 by 72. The synergy is 18 by 72. And the price is 30, a little bit less than 36 by 72. So that's 18 inches high.
Do you want to vote on this one first? And then,
Well, I'm thinking this is where it's gonna be applicable, because there's nowhere else where we're talking about the square footage, are we? Of the electronic.
No, we're not talking about the square footage at all.
And he went from 38 to 48.
They're 48 wide, yep, or, right.
And to me, Synergy is a busy, cluttery thing, and they could get closer to the 38. If they want the electronic message board, that's one thing, but could be, because they want some kind of synergy, what the hell's that mean when you're driving by looking for gas at night?
I guess I don't know, because we're never they're never outside the size, so I don't know when. I guess I don't know which variants would we discuss that. Because they're never outside the size of the sign.
66, right? Still within the 66.
Right.
No, but it gets, to me, it gets back to clutter and the electronic sign. I mean, I'm fine with,
So you want to have a condition that it can have them, it can have mobile and then the price only?
Like you said, with most reader boards like this, it's numbers only anyways, it's not a letter or word.
I mean, I get the brand, I get the price, but I don't know why we have to let them clutter it with the synergy part. And
I agree, it should just be name and price.
Does that propose a problem?
Nope, happy with that.
Okay.
So without the synergy part though, does it go down, back down to the original 38 or whatever you want it on?
I guess it
Almost.
depends on how we look at that 66 square foot. There was no other change, so he's going undersized, like, whether he wants to make it, use that full space and make mobile bigger, I don't know if we care about that as much. If, I'm not saying if we do or not, but maybe we should have a discussion.
Well, is the Synergy 18 inches high?
That's what he said, yeah.
Yes.
It'll drop it down, if it's 6 feet across, it'll drop it down 9, so it'll drop it down to 39 square feet total. So it gets it closer, certainly.
Gets it close, but if you're taking it off and they end up putting the brand name up there, which again, it becomes a battle, a contest. When you're looking at it with all the other gas station signs in the conformance, you know?
Right, they just make the
It's
mobile
like, hi,
bigger.
come see me.
Right.
They just make the mobile sign bigger.
But it's
That's
less
just-
cluttered.
That's just making the mobile sign huge.
Right.
Yeah, but he's well under whatever could be allowed for a freestanding sign.
Although I don't know, across the street, that Shell sign is
It's huge.
50 feet high? I don't really know what's going on there.
Yeah, but that was a different variant.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you can't play it that way.
No.
I'm looking at the clutter and,
But it only does just say Shell, right?
Duncan underneath it.
Oh, it does.
Yep.
That's the other brand, right?
Yeah. The Shell has a bunch of signs, but I guess it doesn't have words, just the Shell. But that's probably neither here nor there. I mean, I think if we take out the Synergy, that's fine, but if it's gonna be, I mean, if we limit it to 39 square feet, and restrict it to just saying mobile and the price, I think that would prevent kind of the concerns we have about the mobile sign being too big and there being too much clutter, if you wanted to add those restrictions.
well, the overall sign isn't overwhelming. It's the cluttery look is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So if they want to have that one price and the mobile and make it fit in the 48, unless we want to try to push them back closer to what was there.
I'm fine either way.
So what part were we on where we're left to the hardship?
Just comments,
Comments.
how we're gonna restrict it. So we could restrict it to 48 feet with only the price and the, although
One
can we
price in
restrict
red.
content like that? We can't restrict content like that. So if we're gonna restrict it, we should probably restrict it by size.
So then we'll go back out to Nick. If somebody comes in and wants to put all kinds of, someone buys it for different use and it's not gas and they don't need the electronic message and they want to put something else in there with all kinds of clutter, there's no, as long as they're within the 48 feet, there's nothing we could do?
No, if they have, it's there by variance? No.
So just because of a sign change, there won't be any review by anybody?
If they're not changing the sign, the size or the location or the height.
What about the electronics? If they, does that variance cover that electronics be there?
I think once we give them the variance, they can use it.
They can use it, they
Yeah.
can change the electronics and put whatever they
I
want in.
think that's right.
So then, I guess even going forward and looking at it in general terms, we probably should put, I know that the gas stations don't typically get it scrolling, but if you go down to Speedway in Salem, they make theirs scroll all over the place. And that's what we don't want.
Said it wasn't gonna be scrolling, I think. He said it was gonna be fixed.
Right, but because it's electronic message sign, and we've never addressed this with other applicants, if a new applicant comes in,
Okay, so you can't restrict even like the digital to just,
Mr. Chairman, I think.
okay, we have this
I think we
public,
did.
please?
I
Thank you.
think we did address that with,
right, can't flash.
Was there something you wanted to say,
Mr.
Mr.?
Chairman, these digits are never changed into electronic message centers. They're a digit and that's it.
No, but if the gas station goes away, they have electronic message board variants for a sign for the next business that goes in there.
But then the restriction becomes that the electronic message is only to display numerals and it's only for a gas station.
So that's what I was trying to
Yeah.
come up with for our restrictions and comments.
yes.
Exactly was what I was, where I was going. So thank you, that helped with the word.
Thank you. I'd like to be helpful.
That's all I was after.
So it's
because-
only for gas stations and it's only for digits.
Yeah, that works.
And that's all I was trying to protect.
Sorry, I-
So, thank you. That's why it's good to have it public.
And Mr. Chairman, it only operates during normal business hours or half an hour after closing and or half an hour before opening that's the other typical restriction on them. Some time limit that it operates.
Now, do they leave the pumps on all night for credit cards?
No. Most gas stations do not want people driving in when the station is closed. So they turn the canopy lights off, they turn the signs off, and they turn the pumps off.
Not on 102.
So we're gonna, the other restriction was only the store ID and the digits? Is that allowed, or?
You shouldn't be regulating the content of what's on his sign.
I'm not regulating the content, other than the store ID and the digits. It's kind of like we're saying it's non-scrolling, non-flashing, non-rolling. And so if Joe's Pizza went in, it can say Joe's Pizza. Well, we're not trying to regulate that. We just, the synergy and the fluff in between, I think, is clutter.
I don't think that's a determination for the board to make when they go for the sign permit. I think that would be a determination for Nick to say if it's clutter or not. That's my
Okay, so we're trying to get synergy out of here now, and the applicant, I think, has said that would be fine. And then,
Where, I'm a little confused about the previous variances that they got, where they did have a variance for 66 square feet. Would you be terribly upset coming back again so we could do some research on that? If now he decided to go back to 38 square feet, then he wouldn't even need the location variances because he wouldn't be changing the size. So you could eliminate 3 of the variances there for the size and for the 2 locations. So you would only be talking about the electronics.
Then the
But
wall sign.
I'm wondering where it was already granted 66 square feet. You know, if he wants to keep proceeding now, that's fine, but if he wanted to try to get the sign bigger, we could do a little research to see if there were already, what the restrictions were on that 66 square feet.
He's not trying to get it bigger though, right? He's actually going smaller than that.
I mean, bigger than the 38 square feet that it is
That,
now.
that put him into this pocket anyway.
Real, yes.
I think last time he came back and went for the bigger one.
Yes, there's always a double, there's always a double jeopardy.
I know, I think in this instance, even though we say 66 square feet, we've got power lines or cable lines, and they can't go any higher because they'll be banging into cable lines. If they go any lower, it's gonna get wiped out by vehicles. And if they go wider, they're gonna be in the path. So how do we control that?
I don't know how they granted the 66 square feet back then. That's what I'm saying, we'd have to do some research on that.
Well, we can continue that component of it.
We should also get the 2002 and the 2006, because that's when they changed the location. So I wonder how the 66 square feet interplays with the location change. Because it's 66 square feet, but that's before they got closer to the property line,
Yeah, I mean, God, they'd be out
out in the street.
in the street,
Yeah.
at least in their driveway if they
Yeah.
did any bigger.
Yeah,
Couldn't fit a sign that big there, over there.
So if he agrees tonight to 38 or even the 48, I'm trying to get rid of the clutter.
Well, we can't
We can't limit that?
what he's gonna put on his sign, his signage, just the size. But if he were to decide to eliminate the synergy, and that brought him down to 38, then 3 of those variances go away. He doesn't even need them. That's all
Well,
I'm saying.
no,
That's
2 go away.
the size and the 2 locations variances. There were 2 separate ones, one for the front, one for the side.
Oh, okay, yeah, and then the wall sign's different.
Yeah.
We can address clutter when someone's coming for that, and I agree we can't address content, but
Content, yeah.
we can address clutter. I mean, what? All right, so does the board want to get more information on the previous cases?
I mean, I would kind of like to see, because I mean, that's kind of an open question, because if he doesn't need to.
It's up to the applicant.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be up to the applicant. If they want to move forward, they can, but if it eliminates 2 of their variances, you know, it might be an easier way to go, but I think it should be up to them. I agree.
So we'll go back out to the applicant and,
I think I'd like to continue for the 48 square feet, but I'm not applying for 48 square feet. That's not part of the application. The application is, the application,
electronic message board.
correct, and also the setback, which remains the same as it currently is. Setback is defined
Previously,
previously. I mean, the setback of the sign is the setback of the sign. And the height of the sign is the height of the sign. We're not changing that. So I'm not changing the setback, I'm not changing the height. I'm asking for a message board, yes. But I'm not applying for size, because by right in that zone, I'm allowed more than I'm actually asking for. I mean, the other comment I'd raise is clutter. I mean, one man's clutter is another man's.
yeah, but, and it will change from board to board, but right now, we're the clutter judge, I guess.
I understand.
And if you want to take us for limiting your free speech, that's fine, but I'm sticking to the clutter. If I saw value to that, that would be fine. I have no idea what the fuel technology synergy is. That brings no value.
So Synergy is a mobile branding effort to brand a new breed of gasoline that's cleaner and I guess.
So you'd have to be a mobile insider to even know that, or have seen a lot of commercials, but. to me,
Yes,
it's
I mean,
clever.
it is, most mobile stations have that synergy element on them. And they apply on the dispensers, and also some forecourt
Well,
architecture.
They can educate there then, instead of cluttering up the sky.
Mr. Chief, I can just add a little bit guidance for the clutter.
I'm sorry?
For clutter, when you're doing the 5 points, the spirit and intent is where the clutter would come into play. So when you're talking about the 5 variance criteria,
Yeah,
because you would look at section sign, for the sign at 7.1 that talks about purpose and intent, and that's where it talks about control visual clutter. So if the board's going through that analysis.
so in that case, if they don't want to remove it, they would fail there on our,
I'm not saying what they would do,
Well,
I'm just saying, if,
no,
just to guide in the analysis, whatever way the board wants to go, I'm not commenting
No,
on where the
thank you,
board
that's
would
a valid
go. I'm just
point,
saying that would be where you would point
So
to.
if we just said mobile and the digital without the synergy, then that would cover that point.
Would we be able to maintain the size and the 48 square feet and put something else in that space?
then we go back to the spirit. If you can put something else in there, then the spirit and the intent is where it, we haven't seen what you're putting there. And you're coming here because you want for electronic sign.
So-
It's a terrible spot to be in. I've been saying for years that maybe we should be addressing this in the bigger picture. But the place where we hang our hat, and thank you for pointing that out, is in the spirit and intent. The clutter is where we control it. So
So if it's-
if this board says that's clutter, then you just lost. And for you to put something else in there, then we should continue to next week and come back, or next month. And that will give us time. So maybe that's what we should do. We should continue it till next month. Get the other variances, so there's more history, and if you want to look at something else to present, that would be fine, but, or you can go ahead and maybe there's not gonna be a lot of people thinking it's spirit and intent, but
So can I understand the board's, the board's feeling? Is it the fact that the synergy part is not acceptable? You don't like the red and the words within the synergy part? Is that? So if we do something plain in that, relatively vanilla in that section, would that be okay?
So just the branding and the digital, I think that's what we're getting to, right?
I don't know, the trouble is, it's what you bring to here, and so, so what if they put convenience store there and took it off the wall? There's, I don't know, it's, as a board, we're always in a hard spot looking at what can be done. I'm not, to me, that's clutter. It doesn't mean anything to most people, and I know all these gas stations and car dealers all think they control ordinances, but they don't.
Understand?
Thoughts? Go with more information, or,
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to look at the other variances and the 66 square feet and whatnot, that might be helpful, but I don't think we can tell them you can't have synergy there, because I think that's.
well,
getting dangerous.
unless enough of the board, if we go back to 1 or 2, says that
Mr. Chairman, I wonder whether, as a rhetorical question, the clutter doesn't refer to the content of the sign, which is where the board is leaning, but it refers to the number and proliferation of other signage in the area.
No, I am almost better off with a convenience store in that spot than Synergy, that I don't have a clue what the hell that's about. Oh, we got Synergy with you? We're good people? I mean, come on.
Well, hopefully the sign will, the prevalence of the sign will make you see the name and you'll recognize what it is. But it's a international mobile program that involves,
All right, then, as the chairman, I would like to see the previous variances if everybody else is fine with that.
okay.
I have no problem.
And then if he wants, he can change his sign design and come
And
back.
if you want to reevaluate that, and then maybe we can have a discussion with, I don't really think we need to go to a town attorney. We have a full board that can decide. Maybe it's only me that's feeling that way, that's fine.
Okay.
But I think we should go for more information.
It's fine with me.
So, do we need a motion to continue to next month? And we're doing the electronic sign portion, the setback and height, all 3 of them?
Whatever the board, it would just make it clear what, are you continuing all 4
Well, but
variances?
because we don't know what happened. There were some denials on the setbacks and they were given, and so I think the 4th one for the building, I guess we could go along with that unless we think this is a place to put it, but
I mean, I just think if they're coming back anyway, I mean,
continue it all.
yeah.
If we continue it all, and then if he decides, he knows that our issues are, and he decides to change the sign, he can do that too, and
Right.
present a different sign if he wanted to.
Okay. So a motion, we need a motion to continue it?
You do.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion in case number 6/16/21-1 to continue the 4 variances requested to the July zoning board of adjustment meeting.
And it's July 21st.
July 21st zoning.
21st. Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Continued 5-0.
Thank you. See you on the 21st.
All right, thank you.
No voting sheet.
I'll take
Okay.
it.
Any communications or miscellaneous I'm not sure who was copied on the 2 days deadline for the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. Did you get, they're looking for surveys from everybody on boards?
Right, I think that was sent to maybe just you. I didn't send that out. I think that may have been Lisa Drayback. may
I
have
think
sent
it might have came from
It
Colleen.
could have come to Colleen.
I think everyone got it.
Oh, you all got
I
it?
think we did,
Okay.
yeah.
So they were looking for feedback on planning issues and stuff. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I'll probably do it tonight or tomorrow. But the deadline on that's the 18th. So
18th is the
I
deadline.
think 2 days. Does that seem right? Any other communications?
I don't have any.
Other business? Oh, yes. Absolutely, please.
Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. I did want to bring this to your attention, that I did bring it up at Planning Board and at Town Council, that because, since I've been coming to these meetings even more frequently than I used to, that they need to look at the variances for signs and the variances for chickens, because they seem to be every other week. You guys are getting something with signs and chickens, and I think it's better to fix the ordinance and have it nice and clean, and, you know, it's very clear moving forward. And so somebody can say, well, you haven't updated it in a long time, or looked at it. And so I think that, you know, when they do that, if you guys want to attend, it might be a good idea to put your input in, you know, by sitting on this board and what you hear and what you see, and how you feel that your
So
Dealings would help.
All those, something like that wouldn't necessarily be noticed in the paper though, correct? Seems like the town council and the planning board has meetings without everything in the agenda, so we wouldn't even know when to attend.
Well, I guess that's my job, and and as soon as I know, I will come
There's
and
been a
tell
bunch of
you.
things on recusals and everything else that I would have shown up at the meeting, but they never make notice, so you don't know what's being.
I can't control that. I'm
Right, no,
sorry.
I'm just saying in general though, so, yeah, if there's gonna be a meeting and you can inform the
Yeah,
board via
I just
your
think, you know, like
liaison
if
responsibility, that's
you know, if you're at like a meeting and you're addressing something and you can take a note and then have those notes for when that workshop does happen and they start looking at those ordinances, you'll have things to reference as opposed to depending on your memory. And if, you know, my memory, forget about it. But, you know, at least you have it. You can cite in your head, you know, at least, you know, 7 people came and it was this part of the sign ordinance. And, you know, this way you can kind of streamline and focus in on what is coming here a lot. So that would maybe be focused to fix it and get it off the,
No, oh, absolutely, thank you, yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
if you hear about anything, or Laura, if you
Yeah.
hear about any,
and I didn't want to say that at the beginning of the meeting only because I didn't want to
no, absolutely.
affect anybody's opinion. So that's why I waited till the end to
Yeah,
say
no,
something.
no, Thank you. yeah.
Yep.
Any other business? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.